and then just starts walking at him.
Now I'll let you and DB get to more of the single digit stuff because we talked about it a little bit yesterday. But you I know cannot be surprised that our VP was.
Oh no, not at all. I would have guessed if I had guessed. I didn't, but if I had predicted which ones were going to be single digits before the season, Riley Van Poppel absolutely would have been on that list.
I was a little surprised of Dane Key, a little bit, just because kind of new blood into the system and all that stuff. But for what he represents and the type of transfer that he was, it does add up as to why he was, voted upon. And Rhule said it in his walk and talk video, highest vote getter from the team. So
it does seem like, it seems like that he has gone out of his way, Dane Key, to be everything Nebraska's coaching staff wants a player to be, right?
Moved in with Rhule.
Yeah, I think somebody, I can't remember who brought this up, but Rhule was talking about how, he met Dane Key and he's like, oh man, this guy's going to be in my wedding someday.
Yeah.
Like that type of connection. And if he builds those type of connections with everybody, it makes sense how he would get that, how he'd get the single digit so fast. My only thing was a little hesitant. I've got a little like wide receiver transfer 1 year PTSD from Jamal Banks and getting the 1 year thing and whatever. And
Billy Kemp too.
Billy Kemp also, where it's just kind of like, I'd really love it if, there was a little bit more there and you had a little bit more history with the program. But again, this is a player-led, player-driven thing. They'll gravitate to who they gravitate towards. I think I said this a couple weeks ago, I think when you were hosting with me, that I think the more the players line up with who Rhule would pick, the better position the program is in.
Yeah.
Right. When the players, it's kind of like when he talks about, hey, the players are saying the same things I'm saying.
Yep.
Right. It's just a manifestation of that.
Well, and DB said it a little bit yesterday too, that there's always going to be, it's player led, player voted on. We're gonna, have those guys do it. Mm-hmm. But then there's also a part of the coaching staff too. And this is probably, I don't think that this is probably an issue now with the Husker coaching staff, maybe in the first year when they were doing this, but maybe the 10 that they voted on in 2023, the Husker coaching staff was like, we're actually going to put this guy in instead. We're going to do this a little bit because maybe we need this representation a little bit more.
Maybe it's one of those things too. Everybody brings up the whole Jeff Sims thing and how he had one or whatever. And maybe people didn't really understand at the time what it was supposed to be. Maybe it was like, oh, he's the quarterback. He should get one, whatever. Or maybe Jeff Sims is a great locker room guy. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Obviously, it didn't work out here for him, but that's not to say that he wasn't just like this amazing guy in the room, right? But no, Riley Van Poppel absolutely would have been one of the guys that I picked.
Now, it is interesting, though, because you look at RVP's stats, and from an outsider perspective, because, there's going to be some Iowa aggregate account that picks this up and looks at, 8 career tackles, this is the guy you want to be a leader of your team. You don't understand the impact of what he has been and what he did even last year. And I know it frustrated many people to no end, you and I both, that a guy like RVP that could have been a significant contributor on a team that may or less needed him at times last year.
Yeah.
If he's the dominant wrecking ball that he can be as a redshirt sophomore this year, the sky is the limit really for him.
Nebraska would have been better last year if RVP played.
Yes.
But I believe the decision was Riley Van Poppel will be better by redshirting.
Yeah.
And that's when when coaches can make that decision and the players are on board with that, that's when you can, not to steal a line or anything, but that's where the magic happens, right? Because you've got a system in place where players know without a doubt. You think Riley Van Poppel wasn't looking out there every Saturday and be like, I can help there? Yeah, of course he was.
Yeah.
But he knew, hey, because this wasn't going to be 2023 where the starting tackles were only playing like 35, 40 snaps a game. Coach Rhule, I think, talked about this over the weekend. This was a situation where Nash and Ty were probably going to get 50, 55, 60 snaps a game. That doesn't leave that much for Riley Van Poppel, even though he could have been helpful. Even if you drop those down to like 45, 50, that's probably not worth it for him to burn a red shirt on.
Yep.
So you sit there and you go, hey, we think you can get a lot better this year. And yes, you could help us, but long-term, this is what's best for you. That's when you get total buy-in from players because it's not just, what can I do for the coaches? It's what can we do for each other?
Yeah.
And that becomes a total game changer when you're talking about team culture and things like that. Because we talk all the time about like, hey, they're not asking you to do anything that they wouldn't do themselves. That's sometimes hard to translate from player to coach because your jobs are so different. The coaches, although I don't know if you at the open practice, Terry Braden was running sprints when his unit got in trouble, just like everybody else was, right?
Nice. Yeah.
So a lot of times there's not a direct translation of like, oh, like you have to do this physically, like you have to be up at 5 a.m. to be in the weight room. Like that's not always the job of the coaches, right? But it's the point of, hey, we're willing to sacrifice for you just the way we're asking you to sacrifice for us.
Yeah.
And I think that makes a huge difference. And I think Riley Van Poppel, especially if he's able to have the year or next couple years that we think he has the ability to, that's going to be a huge, I think, kind of poster child for what Nebraska football is, right? Of, hey, this guy made the difficult choice. This guy had the opportunity to do even more as a sophomore than we allowed him to, but we said, hey, this is what's best for you. And then let's say he goes on and is like a second-round pick in the NFL draft.
That's a win.
That's
a win for everybody.
Huge culture win and a program win because you can point to that and say, hey, this is how we take care of our players.
Yep.
This is how we make sure we do what's best for them.
Yep.
And that, to me, is a program changer.
Yeah. And especially, I mean, everything you said, if you get a guy like Raleigh and Poppel, sometimes I think we forget about how big it was that he committed to Nebraska too.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one of the top defensive linemen in the state of Texas. He's being recruited by a lot of high-profile programs. If he had went to some of those programs, he would have been starter somewhere else, right? He would have been doing certain things elsewhere.
And I believe he had to, I don't know if he officially decommitted, but I believe there was, when the coaching transition happened, I believe there was some uncertainty whether or not he was going to end up in the fold as well. So, like, he bought into Nebraska, then he had to re-buy into Coach Rhule. Like, this was a significant recruit. This is a big guy.
And you get a guy that's like that to, one, not look outside on the grasses that surround you and try to peek into other people's yards and say, oh, I could, jump ship.
Greener,
could jump ship over here. I could be looking at, the neighbor's house over here. He wanted to stay in place. And when you've got a guy that's on the fringe on, the second half of your two deep, or you've got a guy that is, another one of those upcoming breakout stars, if Riley Van Poppel becomes that player that we expect him to become, like you said, if he is a second-round pick, that is tremendous.
I mean, even if he's a fourth-round pick like Ty Robinson, that's a win.
But then you can use him as an example, and Rhule can say, his buy-in got him here.
Yeah.
That's what, and when you can sit down with another player of that sort, you can do the same thing with someone else later and say, yes, RVP was an example that we used in 2023, 2024 for this. We think that you are that type of player again. It's a compliment at that point, right?
Absolutely.
Because then it doesn't become a, hey, we're redshirting you just because, it's not going to fit this year.
You're ready or whatever. Because that's what a lot of people think redshirt is.
Yes,
people look at a redshirt and they go, oh, this is because I'm not ready.
Yes.
That wasn't the case with Riley Van Poppel. He would have been helpful last year.
And so then instead you can have the conversation of saying, okay, yeah, no, it's not that you're not ready right now. We could use you. You would actually be a piece of our pie for this upcoming season, whatever your role is. But we find your value more important and more impactful for years to come in the future, and we need you then more than we need you right now. And I think that would resonate even more for some players. And
frankly, we're worried more about what's best for you than what's best for us.
Yeah.
That's what they're saying.
I think the best part about this too is that you and I are speaking this to masses, right? But we aren't the ones that have to convince any of these guys. No. I actually almost fully believe now from everything that we hear from the offseason, the way the guys have talked here heading into this year 3 of all of the spring game press conferences from where we've been in the summer to hearing guys when they interview with Avery and Anna and all the other people we have out and about doing stuff. When we hear the Nebraska football players now talk comparative to where they were leading into Rhule's first year to where they were last year, I think you've got a roster of RVP and mentality.
Yeah.
I really don't think it's hard to get. I think if you sat down, if Rhule and his coaching staff had to sit down a lot of guys that were in his circumstance, Riley Van Poppel's circumstance from last year, I don't think you have that much that many guys that are, not going to buy into what they're feeding them.
I think so. Last year, I think you're probably about 50-50.
I would agree.
This year, I think the number of guys that wouldn't understand is dramatically lower.
Yep.
I mean, I keep coming back to this thing that Rhule said a couple weeks ago that sort of went under the radar and just in passing, where he was asked about transfers, and he goes, I'm not bringing in guys that don't want to practice. I'm not bringing in guys that don't love football. I'm not bringing in guys that don't eat at the training table. I already fixed that problem.
Yeah.
That just keeps ringing in my head. I already fixed that problem. The way he talks about this team and their mentality.
We're making it a good job.
Yes,
Yeah.
like the I already fixed that problem lets me know that, like, yeah, there were guys that weren't quite there where they needed to be mentally. And I think what he's telling us is like, hey, this team is where I need him to be.
Yep.
I think there's way more Riley Van Poppels on this team, and maybe he's the like most extreme example. Maybe he's like the poster boy for what Nebraska wants. But I think there's way more Riley Van Poppels than there are not on this team now. Yeah. And that's part of the reason I'm so bullish on this roster and kind of what they've got going on going into year 3.
What if we see someone like I'm trying to think. Like, did Cortez, did he redshirt last year? I can't remember.
No, he's a true freshman.
Oh, so he's a true freshman.
Yeah,
okay, perfect. So, great example. So, let's say Cortez Mills' first 2 games of the year, he has like 100 yards receiving against Cincinnati, right? Like, breaks open a big play. And then in the second game against Akron, he has like, another big play. And Rhule just goes, hey, we love what you're doing. We might need you for a future term. Mm-hmm. So we might have to put like a red shirt on you. I'm not saying like that's obviously how it would go. Right. If he's making big plays, they're probably going to use him.
But if you're looking at him and you go, okay, let's say him and Jacori are a little redundant.
Right.
And like Keelan Smith, who I'm really high on, and Quinn Clark, who had a really nice open practice and has gotten their names mentioned a couple times. Let's say they continue to progress and you're like, they kind of bring us an element that's different than what Cortez does.
Yep.
Maybe we want to save. Now, I don't think it's going to happen because I think with the Dana Holgorsen offense, like you kind of want guys like Cortez or Corey, whatever. But just for the sake of an argument, that's a position group where you've got guys that could play now, that maybe you've got some guys behind them that could fill that gap. And I think that's a fair example. I think a Cortez Mills, I think it would drive him crazy.
I think so too.
But I also think he would do it.
But I'll add this part too. I think that the Nebraska coaching staff is also in a different spot now because of the new influences that have come in, that especially on that offensive side, that it would be a conversation Rhule would have with Dana and would have with Kel Schwartz and all those guys too. But if it came to a point in the season where, Isaiah Hunter's just not doing it, know what? Hey, listen, we know what we told you back in September, but Cortez, you got to get back in here because we need someone to get this done. And we're willing to burn that red shirt for the sake of getting into winning football. And I think that they're cool with either conversation. I think they love to think of the long term. They want to play the long game. But when it comes to the nuts and bolts of trying to get it done and making sure that they are having success and they're setting the standard and keeping that standard, I think that there's really no element of what they want to do with this team in terms of buy-in that they could tell the team that everyone wouldn't, be fully throttled going the same direction.
Yeah, I actually don't think they would have the second conversation with him.
You don't think so?
If they had, let's say that he hasn't played, let's say he plays the 2 games, he hasn't played since then and goes into November, and let's say one of the receivers gets hurt.
Right.
Or whatever. Let's say it's an injury because that way it's not a production thing, right? I genuinely don't think they would go to Cortez and be like, hey, I know we sat you for like 2 months, but now we need you. I think they would say, hey, even though we could use you, it's what's best for you is to wait until you've got the 2 games left and we can use you
for those 2 and then all the playoff.
But leave you for redshirt. Because I don't think they would go back on it if they would say, hey, this is what's best for you. Now, Cortez might be banging down their door.
Exactly.
And saying like, hey, get me in this game now.
Right. But that Big Ten opener, he would be.
I really don't think they'd go back to him and be like, hey, I know we said we're going to redshirt. Like, I don't think they would do that to him. A, because you're in a different mentality. And then B, a lot of times, I don't know how many people know this, but a lot of times red shirts, even now when they're playing the 4 games or whatever, their training's a little bit different during the course of the season than it is if you're actively preparing to play. And so I honestly think they would probably just say, hey, this is what we decided was best for you. If that costs us a little bit, like, then that's okay. Cause we don't want to waste a year of your eligibility because we decided to sit you down for 2 months and then just try and use you for 5 games instead of 4, right? Like, that's a tough look.
And Headley, I understand what you're saying. Oh, you don't sit Mills because you don't want to watch him play ball somewhere else next year. I get it. But at the same time, when it was announced that RVP was going to redshirt, that's a possibility in itself. And yet he stayed.
Yeah.
That's what we were trying to talk about a little bit ago. With 95% of this roster is bought in.
Yeah.
They committed to Rhule and they committed to Nebraska football because they understand it will be a process for them individually, for them as the program, for them as a collective, right?
I will say I don't think Mills is getting redshirted. That was just an example.
That is all an example. Yeah.
I don't think it's more likely. I think that like a running back could get redshirted,
like Mosey. Yeah.
Either Mosey or like Quentin Ives, maybe. Maybe like Quentin Ives has had a little bit. He's been a little banged up, so he's missed part of fall camp. Let's say a week from now he starts to get healthy, and he looks at this narrative and goes, okay, well, I'm behind Emmett Johnson, I'm behind Mekhi Nelson, now I'm behind Mosey as well, and they're like, hey, we could definitely use you. You could maybe get back into that running back 3 conversation or whatever. And he sits there and they go to them and they say, but let's redshirt you. Let's not waste this year. And I don't know if Quentin's been redshirted or not yet. So that's this, just an example. But
I'm sure we'll get that probably leading into week 1. I would think.
Right. But if you go and say, hey, we're going to lose Emmett after this year, let's go ahead and save you so that you can be ready for next year, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be better for you. You're going to get more opportunities rather than just burning a year of your eligibility. Connor Booth could be the same way. I could see Connor Booth fighting for 4th team running back reps right now with Quentin Ives. Like there's a chance that I think he could play. I also think, and certainly on like special teams, I also think there's a chance they would go to him and say, hey, we don't want to waste your year. Let's get you ready to play in the future when your time is a little bit closer to getting real running back reps.
Yeah.
I think that's the key here is doing what's best for the players and believing that in the long term that's what's best for the program rather than trying to mortgage the future in order to get a win or 2 more this year. I understand that can be frustrating to Nebraska fans sometimes. It was frustrating me last year in the secondary.
Yep.
I didn't like how the secondary was playing.
And I was right there with you. I agreed.
I was getting super frustrated, specifically with Gifford and Singleton and some of their run fits and the way they were playing safety. I didn't love it, right? You get frustrated with, and this is not his fault because I know Malcolm Hartzog is a lot of what they love about Nebraska football players, but there's certain positions he's just undersized for, right? And that makes it really difficult on him. He's doing his best, and he's doing everything they ask of him, and that's part of the reason he allows himself to get put in positions where maybe he doesn't look the best. Rhule was talking about this over the weekend as well. There's some guys that'll say, oh, I don't want to go play right tackle. I'm a left tackle. I don't want to go look bad.
Yeah.
That's not Malcolm Hartzog. Malcolm Hartzog is going to go play, and he was talking about Mosey too. He'll go play wherever you ask him to play.
Yeah.
So I don't want to be too hard on Hartzog because I think sometimes when we see him in positions where he doesn't look the best, it's because he's covering for someone or he's doing something that he ideally wouldn't have to be asked to do.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to be too hard on Hartzog. But there's times where you're like, man, really wish they had a different guy they could put there. And I think that they have had different guys they could put there. But when you're in game 7, you don't want to use a guy for 5 games and not be able to redshirt him, right?
Yep.
So there were times in the secondary last year when I looked and I go, man, it would be really, really nice if some of these young guys could come in and play. And I'm sure the coaching staff thought that too. I'm sure John Butler was like, hey, I've been in the NFL for the last decade and a half. Like,
I think I know who could be helping us out right now.
Can we just put the guys in that can help me?
But you know what's funny about it too? After Wisconsin, you play the Iowa game, you get all that break time, you have some, departures, you got some movement, you got some injuries, you get to the Pinstripe Bowl, and lo and behold, who's out there playing their best against an ACC power forward opponent? Donovan Jones.
Yeah.
I mean, I was thoroughly impressed. Donovan Jones is one of my players to watch this upcoming year. I'm more confident in a player that I've only seen one game from, Donovan Jones, because how impressed I was.
Yeah.
And that he wasn't just put in that position because, we got no one else is here, Donovan. I guess you get to go in.
Yeah.
No, I'm sure that it was finally a conversation of we're playing guys that are going to get us a win.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, and not just because of DB, that's how I feel about Caleb. I've always felt that way about Caleb because of how I saw him play in high school. And
you think every guest that we have on here that talks about the DB rotation, you think that they're just being nice to Damon?
No.
Because they're going to mention Caleb? No. They're all saying Caleb for a reason. They're all saying all these other pieces and factors that could rotate in a DB because it's a talented room, because there's that much prosperity going on.
And he's just
Caleb Benning.
He's a super talented kid. And honestly, as much as anything, I know his mentality enough that I'm just that kid's going to figure it out.
Yeah.
Whatever it looks like for him, when you're talking about competitive stamina and the endurance to be the same guy every day and to do the hard thing every day, that's Caleb to a T. I will bet on that any day of the week and twice on Sunday. I'm not saying he's the only one, but I know for sure he's one of them. I will take my chances with that kid. Like,
Yeah.
that kid is built perfectly to play for this coaching staff.
Yep.
Like, the way their mentalities line up is seamless.
I know DB's talked a little bit about it, like on the show.
Yeah.
I know you have a better insight on it too, but it's not like Caleb was immediately going to be a Husker anyway.
Yeah, no, it was not.
He was being recruited, and he was garnering his other options too.
Yeah, I mean,
he
like,
chose to buy into a program.
it was never a given.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think we can explain that to people enough, and DB said it on the air, so I don't feel bad saying it. I'm not betraying confidence
we got a Creed
or
up
anything.
on the TV.
Oh, always.
That's insane.
Always have Creed on TV. This was not a given. This was never a given.
Yep.
Like, DB was genuinely nervous he was going to have to deal with his kid playing for a different Big Ten school.
Yep.
And that was an extremely stressful time for everybody in that family. Like, Matt Rhule had to go and get it done.
Yep.
Like, how many times has DB told the story? Like, oh, I'll go close his ass. Like,
Yeah.
that's what Rhule
Yep.
said to him, right?
Yep.
So, like, this is a kid that I think Rhule identified as mentally being exactly where he needed to be, and obviously being physically gifted enough to get the job done as well. Like,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of, whether it's Caleb Bennings or Riley Van Poppels or apparently Dane Keys on this team, I think there are way more of those than there are of any of the other, not even problem personalities, right? Just not quite the right fit.
Yep.